Faraway Wanderers. Chapter 43, Rescue Mission. Gu Xiang appeared at the door brazenly, looking fearless and without care. Then she saw the tragic state Cao Whining was in, and anger burned in her heart. She sneered. And here I thought you people from so-called orthodox schools only ganged up on people when you can't beat them on your own. Turns out, it's an actual habit. Zhang Chenling, come out and tell them where exactly I've kidnapped you to. It was only then do the crowd notice the timid youngster behind her. As if embarrassed at the prospect of speaking in front of so many people. On top of this, the savage expression on the faces of Feng Xiaofeng and the others, he couldn't help but cower a bit. With demure steps that befitted a young bride, Zhang Chenling shuffled closer to Gu Xiang and mumbled softly. Sister Gu Xiang didn't kidnap me. I was the one who followed them. Willow Green Grandpa fumed, nonsense, boy Zhang, have you following the example of others to have fallen prey to beauty at this young age? Don't tell me you had been blinded by this demonic enchantress. As soon as Feng Xiaofeng saw that Gu Xiang, his eyes turned, brandishing his machete, he swung at her crying, wretched girl, leave your eyes behind. Turning sideways, Gu Xiang retreated 3 successive steps to dodge the slashes coming at her. Then she glided upwards, hopping onto the roof beams. Shorty, she said, towering from above. That giant oaf of yours is lucky I took pity on him, because I figured having to follow you around has got to be 8 lifetimes worth of shit luck. In my gentle lady's mercy, I only blinded his blinkers. Had it been anyone else, they would have taken his life for sure. Not to mention that you purposely went looking for trouble and caused him to get hurt because of you, humph. That last snort at the end of her tirade was a little out of breath. The lithe young woman was leaping from one beam to the next to evade the siege from all sides. All the while, her chest laden with anxiety, she edged toward Cao Whining. Without warning, Huang Daoran vaulted up to the ceiling to intercept her. He pounced in her direction. Quick to judge that she was at disadvantage, Gu Xiang crouched down before hopping toward another broad joist. She stretched an arm out to hook it around the horizontal beam and whirled beautifully in mid-air. She made a flinging motion with her hand, shouting, "Watch out." Huang Daoran jumped in fright at her cry, as he didn't know what vicious trick the little witch from who knows where was using now. He let out a groan and retreated with a large step. But there were no hidden weapons or poisonous powder. And when Huang Daoran took a second look, Gu Xiang had already evaded him. Giggling, she taunted, "Ugly freak, scared you didn't I?" Mo Huikong had long released the panicked Cao Whining. He observed impassively and remarked on how the girl who had already escaped still came back to save his foolish Shizi. It seemed that this young maiden may be true in her affection, just a slightly hard one to deal with. He slid a glance at Cao Whining, who was fidgeting on the spot with a stupid expression on his face as though he was itching to pull the girl over, and pursed his lips. Ferocious or not, somebody was clearly willing to get pricked. Even if in the future the foolish lad married a she-dragon, it'd be a case of one happily dishing it out and the other gladly lapping it up. Just at the moment, Peach Red Grandma and Willow Green Grandpa pounced at her from left and right, trapping Gu Xiang between them. Gu Xiang didn't hesitate. She issued an upward kick, the small blade that sprang from her shoe aimed at Willow Green Grandpa's chest. However, Willow Green Grandpa was skilled. He didn't dodge or otherwise evade, but drew up his walking staff crosswise, and Gu Xiang felt a burst of energy surge at her. Gu Xiang understood at once that she wasn't the old man's match. She swiftly retracted her leg, but it still wasn't quick enough, and the blade at the point of her shoe shattered. Gu Xiang whipped back around immediately, prepared to reuse her old trick, but she didn't expect that the Peach Red Grandma had already sneaked up on her from behind. Panicked, Gu Xiang called out in an urgent voice. "I'm about to die over and you're still watching the show." A chuckle echoed through the air, and then Peach Red Grandma felt something hurl towards her back. It was too late for her to dodge. She could only spring forward with all her might and stick herself onto the rafters like a giant lizard. Gu Xiang used the opening to hop off from the ceiling. Meanwhile, the gathered crowd realized that the thrown weapon which had scared Peach Red Grandma witless was only a walnut shell. More accurately, it was only half of one. Immediately after, a crack sound of walnut being unshelled came from the doorway. A man with unassuming features was holding a small packet of walnuts in his hands. Two fingertips pinched inwards as the walnut shell burst open. He then threw the kernel into his mouth and feasted on it with relish. Beside him was an even more sorry-looking person. The two of them looked like they were born of the same mother since they shared the same yellowish-green complexion and puffy eyes. The one holding the walnuts politely offered them to the one beside him, saying, "Are you sure you don't want to try one?" Like he was dodging a catastrophe, the other person arched backwards and replied with an expression of revulsion, "Get that thing away from me." The one holding the walnuts laughed. "Oh, the great, is afraid of eating walnuts. Why, this is good stuff. Eating these make you smarter, they're good for your brain." The man next to him stepped forward, stretched his arms around Zhang Qingling's shoulders, and said, "No matter how you enrich a pig's brain, it'll stay the same." Yu Kaiyufeng frowned towards them and asked, "Who are you?" The person holding Zhang Qinling shoved the youth forward and whispered in his ear, "I find him an eyesore. Go beat him up on my behalf." Mouth open, Zhang Qinling looked at him dumbly. "Shishu. You, what? They bullied you, Sister Gu Xiang, and you're just standing aside. Are you a man or are you not?" Zhang Qinling extended a finger to point at Yu Kaiyufeng, then pointed to himself at a loss. This, that. The strange man couldn't stand his hand wringing and kick him on his rear. Stumbling 2 steps forward, Zhang Qinling almost flung into Yu Kaiyufeng's arms. Overjoyed, Yu Kaiyufeng softened his voice and said to Zhang Qinling, "Child of the Zhang family, come to me." Zhang Qinling gazed around with perplexed eyes, looking exactly like a bunny who couldn't find its way home. The man holding the walnut chuckled softly and said, "You're too cruel." The man next to him said impassively, "When the young hawk grows up, he will be taken out of the nest by its mother. I'm doing this for his own good." Zhang Qinling, who was regarded as the young Hall, took a step back timidly, treating Yu Kaiyufeng like an old pervert who preyed on children. Meanwhile, Feng Xiaofeng was not as polite as the head of Huashan sect leader. He thought to himself that it seemed that the little Zhang fellow is with them. Seizing him was good too, since they wouldn't have to fear not being able to hold back these people that way. Who cares who he was as long as he didn't kill him while catching him? And so, he went forward and reached to seize Zhang Qinling. Zhang Qinling turned around and fled, shouting, "Heavens! Shishu, he wants to catch me." The person holding the walnut snickered and used the tip of his shoe to poke the one beside him. "I say, your baby hawk's feathers are puffed up in fright." "Hopeless," the man muttered and suddenly gave a palm strike through the air. Zhang Qinling felt a strong surge of energy in the air, as if someone had pushed him hard and blocked his steps. Immediately after, his arms were propped up like a puppet on strings which met with the rushing Feng Xiaofeng head-on. Zhang Qinling closed his eyes in fright, his fist clenching subconsciously, and his fist landed right on the bridge of Feng Xiaofeng's nose. Shocking the dwarf into letting loose an earth-shattering howl, Zhang Qinling opened his eyes and looked at his fist dizzily, unable to believe it. Someone's voice tunneled across the distance. It was his Shifu's voice ringing by his ears once more, reprimanding him. "Idiot, why are you in a daze? Kick his Danshong acupuncture point." Zhang Qinling obeyed out of reflex. It felt as if the energy that had surged at him still hadn't left him, and his limbs thrummed with it. With the energy pushing him forward, he sent Feng Xiaofeng flying with a kick. Yu Kaiyufeng exclaimed loudly, "Who are you?" The strange man did not reply but slammed another palm towards Zhang Qingling's back. Zhang Qinling yelped as he felt himself hurl at Yu Kaiyufeng. Yu Kaiyufeng's gaze stilled, he unsheathed a long sword out of nowhere and met the boy head on. It looked as if Zhang Chengling was about to be impaled on the sword. Scared to the point of pissing his pants, but still unable to stop his feet that were carrying him forth out of their own volition, he screeched in panic, "Shifu! Help me!" The voice by his ear spoke again. Since the top of his sword is trembling slightly, he must have another move following on the heels of this one. Retreat with the 9 palaces step, and strike the side of his arm. Those words made sense to Zhang Chengling. So, almost involuntarily, he took a sidestep before whirling away from the tip of Yu Kaiyufeng's sword. Yu Kaiyufeng instantly changed his stance. With a jolt, his blade zeroed in on Zhang Chengling once more. But Zhang Chengling didn't falter. By putting his right foot forward, he hopped ahead. The posture was awkward, extremely odd and clumsy, but somehow, he dodged Yu Kaiyufeng's blow. Then, respectfully following his Shifu's instructions to strike the side of his arm, he shut his eyes, gritted his teeth and head-butted the target. The one who was snacking on walnuts was none other than Wen Kexing, who was thrilled upon witnessing this sight. What Zhou Zishu had taught Zhang Chengling was none other than one of the top Qinggong techniques, the drifting clouds 9 palaces steps. It sought movement as light as drifting clouds and flying willow catkin, and when applied, a person would truly look like a gliding immortal. It was elegantly genteel and very nice to look at. Wen Kexing knew for the first time that someone could perform this drifting clouds 9 palaces steps like a black bear performing a dance. Beside him, however, Zhou Zishu's brows relaxed. He found that although the child's movements were clumsy, he had not misstepped once. He knew that Zhang Chengling took his studies seriously, had learned the mantra and practiced the same steps innumerable times, over and over, that despite being panicked, his feet did not mess up the steps in the face of danger. Yu Kaiyufeng had suffered great injuries to his core when head slammed palms with Wen Kexing that day. Now, upon absorbing the impact of Zhang Chengling's skull, the weapon he had just armed himself with instantly slipped out of his grasp. Furious, he shouted, "Don't let them escape." At this, the crowd immediately surrounded Zhang Chengling. This was not something that Zhang Chengling could handle, so Wen Kexing stuffed the half-eaten packet of walnuts at Zhou Zishu as he said, "Hold this for me, this grandfather is going to discipline a bunch of grandsons," and charged into the fray, laughing uproariously. Zhou Zishu had always found walnuts very repulsive, they taste disgusting and they looked like human brains. Revolted, he pinched the packet with 2 fingers and held it far away from himself at arm's length while he continued to instruct Zhang Chengling by projecting his voice across the distance as he remained a spectator. Gu Xiang took the opportunity to approach Cao whining, kicked a person who tried to stop her, and stared at Mo Huaikong fiercely, the look saying, "I don't care who are, if you dare to block my way, you'll get the same treatment." Who knew that even before she came near, she saw Mo Huaikong bend at the waist exclaiming "Ao." His expression was agonized as he pointed at the baffled Gu Xiang and panted raggedly, This little demon girl is too strong. I am no match for her any longer." Then he sat on the ground with as if stunned, and closed his eyes tightly and stopped moving. Gu Xiang and Cao whining looked at each other, neither of them knowing how to react. Mo Huaikong, who had closed his eyes, suddenly opened one eye and swept towards them, whispering, "Hurry up and run, have you become stupid?" Gu Xiang immediately drew out her dagger and cut the ropes binding Cao Whining's body. Jumping to his feet, Cao Whining replied in an equally low voice, "Thank you, Shishu." Gu Xiang followed suit hastily, "Old man, we will never forget your great mercy for as long as we love. When I make it out, I will definitely erect a memorial archway in your name." "Fuck you. You're the one that has an archway erected for yourself. Your whole family has archways erected for them." As he shut his eyes and faked incapacitation, Mo Huaikong silently cursed non-stop, discovering that although this young maiden Gu Xiang had a decent appearance, her words truly rubbed people the wrong way. Seeing that Gu Xiang and Cao Whining had already fled, Zhou Zishu suddenly swayed over, picked up Zhang Chengling by the back of his neck, and swung him like a mallet. Whirled in mid-air, Zhang Chengling's leg hit Huang Daoren in the chest, forcing him back 10 or so steps. Taking the opportunity to stuff the packet of walnuts into Zhang Chengling's arms, Zhou Zishu told Wen Kexing, "Are you enjoying this much to leave? Let's go." Wen Kexing chortled and flew out of the crowd, saying, "Just as the lush mountains will remain evergreen and the clear rivers flowing, our ties will remain as they are until we next meet. I will be taking my leave now, everyone." Then he left side by side with Zhou Zishu, who had hold of Zhang Chengling. He King Kong of both men were unrivaled. At full strength, it was impossible for anyone to catch up with them. No trace of them was left in the blink of an eye. The three of them fled for a long distance before they stopped. Setting Zhang Chengling down, Zhou Zishu tore off his human mask and straightened his robes. Lowering his head, he saw Zhang Chengling gazing back at him with a pair of shiny eyes like a tiny animal begging for praise, and the movement of his hands paused. The tradition he adhered to in the past was that his Shidi must be punished for any mistakes made, otherwise he would not remember the lesson. If his Shidi did well, to prevent him from being cocky, would not be praised. However, as he looked at the child's expectant manner before him, his heart softened of its own accord. He thought about it and said, "Your King Kong is passable." Zhang Chengling was overjoyed, but Zhou Zishu's expression turned stern immediately as he scolded, "What are you so proud of? Look at your lack of courage. You only know how to howl for help once you run into the smallest problem. How disgraceful." Zhang Chengling head fell down again in dejection, but a warm hand suddenly covered the back of his skull. Chuckling, Wen Kexing told him, "Don't listen to what he says. That bit of skin of his is as thin as paper. He gets shy more easily when he takes his mask off." Before he finished speaking, Zhou Zishu around with a fake smile and asked quietly, "Lao Wen, what are you talking about?" Instantly changing his tune, Wen Kexing corrected himself, "I said that you are calm even in the face of disaster and utterly unshakable when confronted with danger. Your skin isn't thin at all. You don't know the meaning of shame, and not even a stake can penetrate your skin." Zhou Zishu suddenly stretched out a hand to cradle his cheek. Wen Kexing gasped and froze. Zhou Zishu didn't say a word. He merely leaned very close, his eyes staring intensely at Wen Kexing without blinking. Zhang Chengling peered at one man before looking at the other, but could not figure out what they were doing at all. An incense stick would have burnt down wholly before Zhou Zishu finally let go of Wen Kexing with a hint of a smile and flicked his earlobe, laughing, "You're finally blushing now." Wen Kexing took a dazed step forward, his arms and legs along one side, his body swung at the same time. Zhou Zishu laughed heartily. Suddenly, his laughter ceased. Zhang Chengling and Wen Kexing looked up along his gaze, and saw a man in white standing not too far away looking over them impassively. End chapter. Faraway Wanderers. Chapter 44, SHUZHONG. As soon as he spotted Ye Bai, Wen Kexing's face fell. When he saw Ye Bai peer at Zhou Zishu's face unblinkingly, it hit the ground. Zhou Zishu, however, was rather surprised. From a distance, he saluted and said, "Senior Ye." Ye Bai looked at him for another long while before he remarked, "It's you. Why do you always have to make yourself look ghastly? Do you not look quite like a proper human like this? Moreover, there's an old saying, wherever you go, no matter the situation, one should not change his name, much less the looks naturally bestowed upon you by your parents. Do you not know what it meant by to live as plain as day?" Zhou Zishu looked up at the sky, as if this action could suppress the desire in his heart to smack Ye Bai flat. After a short while, he put on an apologetic and humble smile as he said graciously, "As Senior chides." Ye Bai nodded indifferently and told them, "Follow me." Wen Kexing felt that the old man was simply unreasonable, so he sneered, "Who are you? Do I know you?" Ye Bai looked back at him. It was impossible to discern any particular happy or unhappy expression from his face. He remained silent for a moment before he asked, Do you all want to know what happened to Rong Xian and his wife Yu Feng 30 years ago, as well as the truth behind the whole lapis armor mess? Wen Kexing, who had already turned around to walk off, stopped suddenly. With his face turned towards the ground, it was impossible to tell what expression he had on. The few of them were at such an impasse for a while before Wen Kexing turned around and asked in a very strange tone, "Why would we want to know what happened to Rong Xian and his wife?" Ye Bai sighed suddenly and said, "When you live to my age, you will understand that sometimes being able to tell what a person wants is not as difficult as you think." Wen Kexing immediately disliked his tone of voice that was flaunting his seniority. Zhou Zishu exchanged glances with him and asked, "Does senior have some information?" Ye Bai smiled because of his stiff face. It was difficult for others to tell if he had sincerely intended a smile or if it was a sarcastic, fake one. Soon afterwards, they heard him say, "What do I know? I am no more than a fool who has lived for many years in seclusion on Changming Mountain. What can I know?" He turned his back to them, and walked forward, "But I know of someone who may know what happened then." Zhou Zishu commanded Zhang Chengling and said, "Follow me." He caught up to Ye Bai. Wen Kexing found this a little strange, so he asked, "Who is this amazing person who has such omnipotent knowledge?" Ye Bai didn't even look back, as a few words floated out of his mouth. "Long K of the Puppet Manor." Zhou Zishu's brow frowned and he couldn't help pointing out, "Legend has it that there was indeed such a puppet manor within SHUZHONG, but it is hidden deep within the mountains. The lord of the puppet manor, Long K, is a master of traps and of the art of the vanishing door. The manor is said to move around. Back then, I have repeatedly ordered men to create a map, and each time, the one who edited the map would swear that there was nothing wrong with the map, but when one visited the place again, there would be no trace of the manor. It would seem as if it vanished mysteriously." Ye Bai said, "You're useless." Indeed, a dog's mouth could not utter anything as precious as ivory. Zhou Zishu closed his eyes, took a deep breath. He unclenched his fist just to clench it again. He silently regarded Ye Bai's head, which he found increasingly suitable for clobbering. To one side, Zhang Chengling was pulling the corner of his shirt, who was opening his mouth to ask something but was viciously glared at by Zhou Zishu. Irritably whisking the corner of his shirt back, Zhou Zishu scolded, "You're no longer a 10-year-old child," he snapped. "If you have something to say, then out with it. What's with the shilly-shully as if you were some little girl?" He was clearly enraged. Zhang Chengling retracted his head and couldn't speak. Zhou Zishu glanced at him again and said, "What do you want to say? Just out with it." Shifu, are we going to go to SHUZHONG?" Zhou Zishu gave a start. That's right, he realized that it was rather a long journey. So, Zhang Chengling brought trouble upon himself by asking a question he should not have asked. He was tortured in a multitude of ways by his evil Shifu Zhou Zishu for the rest of the journey. Sometimes, he was made to reverse his flow of qi and walk on his hands. Other times, Zhou Zishu pressed a hand down onto his shoulder, ordering that the teenager strenuously speed his way forth with all the energy he had, almost as if he were bearing a load as heavy as that of an enormous mountain. It was worse than death. Off to one side, Wen Kexing didn't say anything. He kept loudly cracking his walnuts open and snacking on them, disgusting Zhou Zishu. At times, he seemed to be thinking about something thoughtfully. Seeing that Zhou Zishu was ignoring the old mule Ye Bai, he made a rare attempt to start conversation with him. "How are you related to Rong Xian? Why do you want to know what happened 30 years ago?" Ye Bai glanced at him and appeared to mutter under his breath. Just when Wen Kexing thought the guy was about to answer, he got heckled instead. "Are you a nosy old woman to be such a gossip? It's none of your business." Wen Kexing clenched his fingers and the shell of the walnut between them disintegrated. A piece flew out over 10 feet away, carried on a blast of air imbued with internal energy like it was some concealed weapon. Zhang Chengling immediately gave those two a wide berth, to prevent an accidental claim to collateral damage. Fully intent on needling the man some more, Wen Kexing was about to make an undoubtedly brilliant retort when something caught his eye. He looked closer and spotted it. There was a silvery strand in Ye Bai's hair. Huh? Yeah, you've got white hair, he said in astonishment. He did not know if it was just his imagination, but in that instant, Ye Bai's hardened eyes seemed to flash so fleetingly that it seemed imperceptible. Unconsciously, he raised a hand to touch his own hair, stopped midway, and put his hand down again as he said impassively, "Have you never seen white hair before?" An ignorant person would find everything rare and strange. When Kexing thought about it, this old monster was indeed ancient. If this was any other person, their remains would have grown cold by now. What was a strand of white hair? After that, he could no longer find a topic of conversation, as Ye Bai had the ability to tell people not to provoke him. On the road from Dongting to SHUZHONG, the man in white acted not dissimilar from a mannequin that could walk. The only times he looked like a living person were during meals, when he would descend upon the food like a natural cataclysm that could bring total annihilation to an army of thousands as easily as flipping over a bamboo mat. Zhou Zishu and Wen Kexing were bored out of their minds. With nothing to do, they could only bicker and take digs at each other, endlessly raucous. Ye Bai listened on dispassionately at first, until he could take the outlandish bickering no longer. He snarked, "If the two of you are capable enough, scram and go tussle in bed. Stop jabbering, you're like two huge crickets. Is it that you can't get it up, or that you're actually maidens disguised as men? What are you pretending to be restrained for? Taking your mushy touchy-feely as entertainment, both of you, shut up already." Zhang Chengling was walking on his hands nearby while reversing the flow of his qi as instructed. It was a tough enough exercise already. Upon hearing that, he gave a start. Then, the teenager, who wasn't exactly a child, appeared to understand something. His face reddened, the circulation of his internal energy got jumbled up, and he took a nosedive, sprawling himself flat on the ground. "Ouch! Ow!" he cried out as he clutched his neck with his face red. Wen Kexing and Zhou Zishu glanced at each other with identical evil glints in their eyes. If Ye Bai hadn't declared that he could find the puppet manner, they would have teamed up to give the old freak a good walloping for sure. But then, for some reason, Wen Kexing got distracted. As he peered at his companion's features, which he found handsome even though Zhou Zishu was barely repressing his ire at the moment, Wen Kexing's gaze wandered downward on its own, as if he could see past his robes. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down while his imagination ran wild. True again, he reflected. I could do with some of what the old freak suggests. With their last source of entertainment gone, the pair tacitly agreed to team up in torturing Zhang Chengling. Zhou Zishu told him to gather your true qi and let it surge into your ki, guide it through your meridians to turn it onto its head as it circulates as it pleases, freely. Wen Kexing would secretly inform him that your internal qi is unstable and your martial power is too weak, which is why your internal qi scatter easily and does not gather readily, that he should steadily progress in proper sequence, feel the true qi in you and let nature take its course. Both sounded reasonable, and Zhang Chengling didn't know whose instruction he should follow. Overwhelmed, he would gather his qi one moment, only to let it disperse the next minute, let it flow naturally, then reverse its circulation. And then, he still had to endure Zhou Zishu's special training method. Zhou Zishu did not look like he had put in much strength, but the hand weighing on Zhang Chengling's shoulder felt like a million caddies. Zhang Chengling couldn't help but worries a little. He thought, what if he could not grow taller because of how his Shifu kept pressing down on him over a long period of time? Feng Xiaofeng's savage and feral mean surface in his mind, and he involuntarily shivered. Zhou Zishu didn't know about the boy's internal worries and felt that while this child is indeed hard-working, he simply could not grasp the essence of his teachings. Back when he had taught Liang Zhuxiao, he had looked down on Liang Zhuxiao for being inept and frequently had to rein in his temper to deal with him. He never would have imagined that, in hindsight, his Shidi was a downright little genius compared to this disciple of his. It was fortunate for Zhang Chenling that his years at the imperial court had grounded patience into him, because Zhou Zishu sometimes felt that he could even have had the urge to kill this child who gave him much grief with a single palm strike. In truth, Zhang Chenling was also wronged. In the first place, Wen Kexing's Gongfu and Zhou Zishu's Gongfu did not share the same approach. If it had been one person teaching him, he still could have made progress, but not with both giving him instructions. If one of them said something, the other had to say his own piece. They did not care if other could understand them. Sometimes as they blabber on, they would start bickering between themselves, and if they could not settle their quarrels, they would leave to explosively fight their mutual discontent out before returning. In the end, it would always result in the flushed faces of both parties, and Wan Ye, by explaining as a narrator, would off to one side that they were using the excuse of exchanging techniques to partake in improper affairs. Zhang Chenling was left with his imagination as to what that could mean, as embarrassed as he was uncomprehending. As the days went by, he felt that not only was his martial ability not improving, it showed signs of regression. The hand his shifu weighed on his shoulder only seemed to grow heavier by the day and was about to crush the breath out of him. In truth, this method of learning Gongfu that Zhang Chenling had adopted was extremely risky. If it were anyone else suffering the torment inflicted by these two, without Zhou Zishu's burdensome hand on his shoulder inconspicuously helping him to regulate his internal qi, he would have undergone qi deviation a long time ago. They traveled extremely swiftly on foot. Not many days later, they had already left troublesome Dongting behind and arrived in SHUZHONG in no time. On this day, Zhang Chenling genuinely could not keep walking any further. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself to walk for more than 10 li. Temple throbbing continuously, he panted heavily with his mouth open, and his heart felt like it was about to leap out of his chest. For every step he took, he had to exert all the energy that he had. Zhou Zishu's stern voice echoed in his ear, "What's this? Are you already giving up? Keep going." Wen Kexing glanced at them, raised his eyebrows, and seemed to feel that Zhang Chenling was pitiful, so he couldn't help but interject, "Aksu, you shut up." Zhou Zishu's face remained inhumanly stern as he ordered further, "Brat, I told you to keep going." Zhang Chengling's vision blurred and darkened around the edges. He wanted to speak, but couldn't. If he opened his mouth and his qi leaked out, Zhou Zishu's hand, which only looked as thin as firewood, would sure to bury him into the ground like he was replanting a carrot. SHUZHONG was a mountainous region. All around them, the ground rose and fell in seemingly boundless undulations. A sense of despair, one of never being able to reach the end of this long journey, suddenly rose within Zhang Chenling. The trembling in his legs was getting stronger as he raised his head with great effort to look at his shifu's face. The handsome side profile was still stern and did not even glance at him. It was like a stone statue with no sentiments and no desires. Breaths continuous and unending, passing through the rondu, like hundreds of rivers flowing into the sea, without leaving a trace. There is a form of internal qi, as agile as a snake, never extinguished, never broken, it ebbs and flows freely. At that moment, faced with the mountain range of SHUZHONG, Zhang Chenling had been forced into a state of despair. A line swiftly flashed through his mind with form, yet no bounds, scatters but never extinguished. All of a sudden, he felt his chest brimming with energy as his vision became more blurred. However, he sensed the transformations in his body all the more acutely. The qi that was stored in his limbs and bones had always been there, he simply wasn't gathering it in the right way. Once he understood the concept, he suddenly felt a great wave of energy surged out of him, which even forcefully dislodged the hand Zhou Zishu had on his shoulders. The last thing he saw was Zhou Zishu's stunned expression, then everything went black before his eyes as he fainted head first. End chapter. Faraway Wanderers. Chapter 45, Hope. Zhou Zishu frowned at his hand that has been flung off. When Ye Bai turned back, he said coolly, "Good job. You've finally tortured him to death. Are you satisfied now?" Wen Kexing was the only one with a bit of conscience who bent down and picked Zhang Chengling up. He placed a palm on his back, channeled a thin thread of true qi into his body. A while later, he made a soft sound of surprise and said, "This boy. His meridians are wider than that of a normal person. Could it be that he actually is a born prodigy?" "Indeed," Zhou Zishu said. "I found out when I helped him regulate his qi after he was injured by enchanted song's shockwaves that time." He took Zhang Chengling from Wen Kexing. The youth's face was pale and his eyebrows were wrinkled tightly. The hem of his trouser legs dangled above his ankles, just on the side of too short. It seems in a half-month time he had grown taller again. Zhang Chengling was born to the Zhang family and was furthermore, Hero Zhang's only son. He shouldn't have been that mediocre after all those years. Zhou Zishu had discovered on the day he had helped him heal his internal injuries that the foundations of his Neogong were in fact been sturdily built. He simply didn't know how to use it. To draw a comparison, he was like a small child who owned a sharp blade but lacked the strength to wield it. Witnessing this, Ye Bai's curiosity was likewise piqued. He reached out to have a feel around Zhang Chengling's body. He remarked, "It's quite amazing that such a person should exist on Earth, one with a stupid brain but born with an exceptional physique," he commented. "What did the heavens intend, I wonder? To let him lead a blessed life or a difficult one?" Thereafter, he glanced at Zhou Zishu and said, "His meridians are clear and wide. He is excellent material to work with in the first place, but his ability to grasp concept is too poor. Conversely, he has more difficulty than any other to figure out the path. Yes, you can push him a little further. Anyways, he won't be dying anytime soon." Fortunately, Zhang Chengling had merely fainted. Because of Zhang Chengling, the other three decided to find a place to stay and wait a night for the boy to recover before entering the mountains. As usual, Zhou Zishu was punctually tortured into wakefulness at midnight by the nails in him. He curled up into a ball, fingers pressing on his chest, but he did not use internal energy to suppress it. He only laid on the bed with his eyes open, staring at the moonlight shining through the window, looking as if he was in daze. He was acutely experiencing the sensation of those nails in his body. Compared to before, the 3 autumn nails of the 7 acupunctures did not only hurt in the same way. They no longer merely felt like small knives incising his flesh. That agony had lessened somewhat, or perhaps he had grown numb to it. Now, there was a new sensation of oppression in the area of his chest that was taking over. It made breathing difficult and had been worsening in the past few days. Zhou Zishu knew that this was a symptom of the 3 years he had. Less than half of it had already passed. It seemed a long time ago when he had thought that these extra 3 years was some sort of kindness, but now he knew that this is in fact, another form of torture. Death did not scare him in the past 2 decades, it had not been easy for him to survive to this day. All the methods he used to force Zhang Chengling to learn Gongfu were the ones he had suffered through when he was younger. His experiences were a lot harsher. He didn't even have that child's natural gift to withstand those hardships unscathed. He has lived through so much, experienced enough things that made him unafraid of anyone or anything in this world. If he was fearless in life, what was so terrifying about death? No, what agonized him was counting down the days as he awaited death. With everything he had endured, his had always been firm and death had never preoccupied him. Yet, in these most carefree moments, in these happiest of times with nothing to worry about, he was to wait for his end. How ironic was that? Zhou Zishu thus realized that he had done something stupid again. At that moment, a light knock sounded at his door. Zhou Zishu started Wen Kexing and Ye Bai, those two would never bother with knocking. A bout of pain lanced in his chest as he sat up, almost making him lie back down. He clutched the bed linen with one hand whilst he took a deep breath. He let his true qi, with strenuous effort, suppress the feeling of suffocation before opening the door with a somber face. Zhang Chengling stood outside, hesitantly holding up a hand, as if to knock again. When the door opened and he saw Zhou Zishu's poor complexion, he immediately lowered his head in guilt and distress as if he had done something wrong. He mumbles in a voice as soft a mosquito buzz, "Shifu." Zhou Zishu frowned and asked, "What are you doing here?" The corner of Zhang Qingling's lips slanted downwards, his face looking on the verge of tears as he said, "Shifu, I just woke up. I couldn't fall back to sleep." Zhou Zishu crossed his arms on his chest, leaned against the doorframe, and scoffed, "So, do you want me to sing you a lullaby to coax you back to sleep?" Zhang Qingling's head hung even lower. Zhou Zishu worried that his neck may snap. It was currently in deep winter and even in SHUZHONG, it was quite chilly in the middle of the night. The nails made Zhou Zishu sensitive to the cold and a draft sent a shudder down his spine. He grabbed his wine jug and gulped down a mouthful, still surveying Zhang Qinling. "Well, what is it? Come on, spit it out." "Shifu," Zhang Qinling said in a small voice. "I dreamed about my father and family again. It's been so long now, but I still haven't forgotten about it. Is it because I'm so useless?" Zhou Zishu froze for a while. Zhang Qinling thought he didn't want to bother with him any longer and furtively raised his head to look at him. He regretted coming over here without a second thought, but then, Zhou Zishu stepped aside and gave him a gentle nod, motioning for him to get into the room. Feeling as if he had been granted a pardon from a great misdeed, Zhang Qinling followed inside obediently. Zhou Zishu lit the lamp. There was no water in the room, so he picked up a cup, unfastened the wine jug and poured half a glass of wine, then handed it to Zhang Qinling. Zhang Qinling didn't know that this liquor was strong and just drank it. He felt a small fire burned from his throat all the way into his stomach. His face turned red instantly as he choked, unable to form any words. At the stupid expression on the boy's face, Zhou Zishu's stern face twitched. Then, unable to control it, he looked away as he cracked up laughing. It was the first time Zhang Qinling had ever seen his strict Shifu smile at him. Stunned, he can only stare dumbly. When he had met Zhou Zishu near his home in Jiangnan, Zhang Qinling had just been orphaned, with nobody to rely on besides this man who would let loose torrents of words with everyone else, but would act taciturn whenever he was around. He had latched onto him like a drowning person clutching at a last riverside straw. Knowing that his Shifu was helping him, he couldn't help but wish to get closer, yet feared to make himself an annoyance. Although Zhou Zishu always appeared displeased by his presence, Zhang Qingling's prudence had slowly turned into reverence, and each time he wanted to tell the man something, he'd experience a good bout of trepidation beforehand. The reception he got was cold more often than not, but Zhang Qinling still couldn't help wanting to come to him whenever he felt sad. He didn't know why, but in his heart, he felt that his Shifu was the same kind of person as his father had been, even though they looked nothing alike. They were both tall and formidable, as well as good to him. Zhang Qinling said, "Shifu, if we follow Senior Ye to look for that puppet manor and ask about the lapis armor. After we clarify the things that happened many years ago, will we then know why they wanted to kill my father?" Zhou Zishu raised an eyebrow, tried to avoid the topic by answering briskly, "Who knows?" Zhang Qinling frowned and mulled it over some more before he asked again, "Shifu, do you think there are people who'd kill others without reason? I've thought a lot about it, and I've been wondering if people wanted to kill my father, is it because my father has done something bad?" The depth of the question was too great. It stumped Zhou Zishu. He lowered his head to look at the boy whose face seemed to be knotted by 100 worries. All of a sudden, he reached out, lifted him by his collar, and threw him out of the room. "Since you've rested so much during the day that you can't sleep now, you may as well make up for your incompetence by training harder. I clearly haven't been tough enough on you if you still have energy left to brood." As he spoke, he gathered a handful of pebbles from the ground and flicked one at Zhang Qinling. Zhang Qinling couldn't dodge. It smacked him squarely on the forehead. "Ouch," he cried out as another one hit him. He was left with no other choice but to scramble off, stumbling and rolling along the way. I remember quite well that there is no stance called dog eats shit in the kung fu I've taught you, his evil Shifu commented. At that moment, Zhang Chengling did not have time to think and could only put in his whole effort to counter those small pebbles cascading onto him like a tightly woven net with no way out. He only let out a sigh of relief when Zhou Zishu had depleted his peebles, but even before he had finished exhaling that breath, he heard Zhou Zishu said, "Was that thing you performed the drifting clouds 9 palaces formations? Even a spider's crawl is more pleasant to look at." The first few steps were adequately performed, but what were those steps in the end? You stay here and do it once more from beginning to end. If you make a mistake again, I'll break your damn legs. Frightened into extreme weariness, he acted as if he was a baby learning how to walk. Zhang Chengling deeply contemplated each step before lifting his leg. He was treading more carefully, just like a crippled old granny, terrified of stepping on as if he might kill an ant on the ground. He would sneak a glance at Zhou Zishu once in a while, worried that he would suddenly get into trouble and really got his legs broken. Zhou Zishu sat down while mentally remarking how hopelessly gullible the boy was. He felt his chest felt tight again, and he couldn't refrain from twisting his head to the side to let out a fit of coughs. His pale face didn't have a hint of color to it, and under the moonlight, it made a dreadful sight. At this moment, he felt warmth behind him. When he turned around, Wen Kexing had come out unnoticed and was standing behind him. The other man draped a cloak over his shoulder before sitting by his side. After a while, Wen Kexing asked, "Does it hurt?" Zhou Zishu scoffed. "Would you like to give it a try?" Suddenly Wen Kexing tentatively reached out his hand, gently brushing open the front of his robes. Zhou Zishu didn't know why, but he didn't avoid the touch. He only sat there while swaying his half-empty wine jug in one hand. Thus, Wen Kexing saw his gaunt chest that was as skeletal as his fingers, as well as the first nail planted over the pit of his stomach. Something flashed in Wen Kexing's eyes before he heaved a sigh and replaced the lapels of Zhou Zishu's robes. The both of them sat shoulder to shoulder, wordless in that moment. It was a long while before Wen Kexing broke the silence again. "I say, in all these years you're the first person I've met that I like and with whom I can get along with. So, could you please not die on me?" Zhou Zishu asked in reply, "Is that something I have a say in?" Wen Kexing doesn't know how to answer that, so he just sighed instead. He looked away as if he didn't want to see Zhou Zishu anymore. His gaze fixed at Zhang Chengling, who was wobbling in the courtyard like an infant learning how to walk. He too stooped to collect a pebble. He flicked it out, hitting the boy on his rear. "Little boy, the so-called martial lightness of the body all comes down to one word: speed. You're over there taking your time as if you're embroidering flowers. Is that practicing Qigong? The sequence of the steps is only empty theory. You'll find that even charlatans who perform fake exorcisms follow pre-arranged choreography. Even if you do not make a single misstep, it's useless if you're that slow." Feeling very much aggravated, Zhang Chengling looked at the two of them. Not only did they have different opinions on practicing Qi, but they also disagreed on how to practice Qigong. He'd be driven to further desperation yet. Thus, from one side, Wen Kexing kept hollering quicker, while chasing him around with projectile pebbles. From the other side, although Zhou Zishu remained silent, his keen eyes didn't leave his footing for a second. He glared at him like a tiger watching his prey, as if waiting for the smallest excuse to break his legs. The night couldn't have been more stressful. Zhang Chengling sighed silently, and suddenly recalled that his dream was not to become some peerless master. If it were not for the sudden tragedy of the Zhang family, his true wish was to open a snack shop in the future, earn enough to support his family and pay the filial respect that was due to his parents, while amiably entertaining guests and friends all day long in his shop. He had never revealed that ambition to anyone, and now it seemed that even thinking about it was something he no longer dared. Early the next morning, Ye Bai had eaten 8 steamers of buns and guzzled down 2 enormous bowls of congee. Just as the other 3 were thinking about moving to another table, he declared that he was ready to take them into the mountain today, that he had figured out a way to disarm the traps that surrounded the puppet's manor. End chapter.